I went through some of the comments. I tried to actually look through some of the comments on YouTube and elsewhere, and you know, so I thought since we had a couple of minutes this morning, I would just go through them. Let me move this so we can see the whole thing. So here's the first one. Dr. Jared, how are you doing? Well, I hope. Dr. Jared, I really need to understand, how do you expect Black America to close the wealth gap if they don't participate in this evil capitalist society? Now, I agree with you when you said we should organize and get political power, but we both know that won't happen in our lifetime. Stolen Africans are just trying to survive and live well while oppressed, I'm assuming. I get it. I get it. But first of all, just in terms of the way that I have not actually advocated, I don't remember ever saying, or certainly writing, that I expect America to close the wealth gap, full stop, unless, yeah, that full stop. So I don't, and as we're going to talk with Diedrich about, and I like the way his argument is, we shouldn't even call it a racial wealth gap, because it suggests when you say gap that it can be closed. It's a divide, and it's a divide because it is, as I'm paraphrasing and interpreting, it is necessary. You, again, cannot have rich without poor. If your desire is to be in the 1%, by definition, you have to help create and recreate in perpetuity the 99%. So I'm not advocating this idea that the wealth gap can be closed. And as the report, as I mentioned when we covered it a few weeks ago, we're going to, and as we look at it in greater detail in the next hour, even this new report from the National Bureau of Economic Research confirms what many of us have been advocating in different ways for a very long time, that the gap cannot close and will not close. And as they argue, even if you remove all of the barrier variables to Black development since the end of the Civil War, if you take away magically all of the white supremacy, all of the barriers to entry from the uneven beginnings coming out of enslavement, if you take away all of that, the best they say we can hope for is a 3-to-1 wealth ratio between white and Black. It's currently, I think we'll look at it, I think it's 6-to-1 now, and that's as best we could hope for, and that even sounds low. But the 3-to-1. So in other words, there is no closing. As long as capitalism exists, there is no closing these gaps. By the way, I think it's a mistake when we ignore the fact that there are class divisions within a white society, that even in a white supremacist country, European settlers, colonial settler country, even whites aren't as a collective equal. So this idea, so anyway, so I'm not advocating that. And I get it. And I also, of course, get it that participation in capitalism is a way for oppressed people to just survive. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what I've argued that is leading to this here, but so what I'm simply saying is that stolen Africans have as our only recourse political organization, movements, and that will assume political power. And then I just leave it at that. How we define political power is another set of questions. I am not advocating by assuming political power that we just engage the Democrat and Republican parties as they exist. I'm not advocating any of that. I'm just saying, and I'm intentionally being vague here because I don't want to claim to have all the answers, and a lot of the answers can't come in these public spaces. But the assumption of political power should be the goal. So That's it. And participating in an evil capitalist society, as you write here, can only at best lead us to where we are now, with wild inequality and a handful of people doing okay. So that's anyway. Uh, D. Stevenson 100 was hating hard on the channel recently. So I pulled up a couple of their comments here. Um, so this was, I believe, in the criticism of Boyce Watkins and Claude Anderson. Jared, do you want black people's poor? And they also wrote, we know the situation we in, but can we call ourselves a black revolutionary without busting guns? Hell no, we just talking. I worked with homeless people. Ask Jared if he want to be homeless. You let Jared fool you. He's a college professor. He's not hurt for money. So let's just, so as I wrote here in my responses, sometimes I do respond. Is that what you get from all the paying close attention to my work and broadcasts? Watch a few more, read my books, and come back in with a detailed review of explaining your conclusions. Or better, question for you, D, is do you want black people to be fleeced and ignorant? So this idea that somehow if I'm critical of black capitalism, it sounds like a little bit similar to the more polite comment or question from the previous person, is that is somehow if you're critical of black capitalism and capitalism, you want black people to be poor. No, in fact, I'm so desperate to not have black people be poor that I want poverty and the condition of being poor to be impossible. That's what I'm advocating. It should be, particularly in a society that produces as much as this. And in fact, in a world now that produces as much as it does, there should be zero poverty and poor anywhere. That's what I'm advocating, actually. So what defenders of black capitalists ultimately are doing is defending the poverty that most black people suffer. So then this whole thing of relatively anonymous people saying we need to bust guns, otherwise we're just talking. Yeah, I'm very clear. I'm not advocating that. And I am just talking. It's a YouTube channel. Or as you referred to in my quote unquote day job, I'm talking to students in a classroom. We're not in a political organization. I say the same thing to them when they get frustrated with my analysis or the work we're doing, and they say, well, what do you want us to do? I don't know. Join a political organization and I'll see you out there. But in here, we're in a classroom. The answers to that can't come in a classroom. We have, as I say all the time, I love it. We have the luxury of being faculty and students in a class and having the chance to step aside, take a break from all the abuse, and relatively objectively analyze the situation and talk about it, study it and talk about it. That's exactly. So yeah, you're absolutely right that I'm not going to be on YouTube or in a classroom advocating that we bust guns. And of course, there's no detail in the comment. So at whom are these guns being busted, and to what end? I see no reference to Che or George Jackson in the comments, so I don't know what you're actually talking about. And usually, when people start talking randomly and publicly about busting guns, they're the cops. That's usually what I think. But I don't know. D. Stevenson says, I worked with homeless people. Ask Jared if he wants to be homeless. Well, D. Stevenson, I don't know how much you pay attention to my show, but as I've talked about, at least briefly at one point in my late teens, I was homeless. So you worked with the homeless. I was homeless. So I've experienced it. I know it's nothing sweet. Don't want no parts of it. And I don't want anybody to have to suffer. So I don't know. And yeah, relatively speaking, as a professor, I'm not hurt for money. And as I've said, I'm not even the primary breadwinner in the house. So relatively speaking, you're right. Me and mine are not hurt for money. But that's sort of the point. I could turn around and use that position and say, see, I've made it. What's wrong with you? Or I could say, I've made it because there are cracks and crevices that I've been able to sort of squeeze through and work through that don't exist for everybody else. And I want those to not be necessary. Just as I keep saying, I don't want to have to be an elite business person to succeed or live well. I don't think anybody should have to be a competent intellectual to get a job in an academic setting to survive. I don't. That's not what I'm. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying we all are contributing to the wealth. We should all benefit from it. So I've never said I've never, again, relatively speaking, I'm not hurt for money. And more importantly, I'm fully health insured. I have full health insurance. So, you know, yeah, but I'm not the standard. Otherwise, I'd be like, yeah, everything is great. What's the problem in the world? You might even hear the birds chirping outside my windows. You don't have birds chirping outside your window. You don't have time to do a YouTube show in the morning. You didn't marry a woman who makes more money than you. What's wrong with you? I don't. So anyway, appreciate you sort of watching. Kamani Jefferson says, why isn't, and thank you. I'm glad I found this because I wanted to give Kamani his due credit here. Why isn't political literacy a term? Crazy how no, and forgive me if I said his because I think I know who Kamani is. So if I'm remembering correctly, I know Kamani to be a man. If I'm incorrect and I'm misidentifying and remembering incorrectly who I think Kamani is versus this Kamani, I apologize. So anyway, Kamani Jefferson says, why isn't political literacy a term? Crazy how none of these guys study in detail agencies and their true power like they study finances. This is again in response to, I believe it was the Boyce and Claude Anderson. It might have been the Earn Your Leisure one. I would argue they don't really study finances properly either. But I love the point about political literacy. We need political literacy, not financial literacy. So usually we've referred to that as political education in the activist world that I come out of. But I think given the popularity of financial literacy, I want to give Kamani credit and say that we need to abandon financial literacy and get to political literacy. Carl Davis asked a couple of days ago, please explain buying power. My understanding is that we don't have wealth and we live paycheck to paycheck. I get that our economy is consumption based, but won't all Americans have buying power? And with our incomes being the lowest, wouldn't we have the least buying power? Great show, keep teaching. Thank you, Carl. And essentially, I don't want to undermine the value of my own work here, but essentially, Carl, you have it correct. Everything you've said here is largely correct. And again, this is sort of my point. My work around buying power is not really a work about economics. It's a work about media and narrative and myth making and propaganda. Because the finances are relatively easy. The economics of it are relatively easy once you peel away all of the horrific journalism, mythology, propaganda, et cetera, and so forth that keep promoting it. But essentially, you're right. Black people don't have any wealth, and it's headed to zero by 2053. Most do live paycheck to paycheck. And given that we do make them least in the economy, our buying power is least. And as I've shown in my work, even all the claims about the strength of Black buying power, even it is only at most, as I showed, 1/8 of the strength of buying power of whites. Buying power is an advertising or marketing concept used primarily only to assess any group's ability to spend money on what advertisers are selling. So Black people, brown people, every segment within these communities, white people, municipalities, businesses, all have their buying power assessed. Only when it's propagandized towards Black people does it become some sort of revolutionary call and a solution to the problems. But nowhere else is that the case. So we do have the least buying power. It's just that buying power when it comes to Black people is rebranded as revolutionary potential. And that's the false claim. And that's why just the other day, the Earn Your Leisure cats with almost 1 million subscribers and millions of dollars in revenue and all this, all this attention and whatever that they get. They're sitting there just a couple of days ago. Well, the video's from a couple months old now, but they're saying, how is our buying power going up if our wealth is going down? And then mispronouncing the Selig Center that produces this monstrosity of a myth every year as their sole source. So they don't understand it. Most people don't understand this. And because of the propaganda. It's not an issue of economics, although I don't think that they understand the economics either. So I hope that helps with that. But thank you for watching. This was a comment definitely in response to the Boyce Watkins and Claude Anderson criticism, saying to me that you are way off base in attempting to analyze what these brothers have begun and how they are evolving. What a masterful job of nitpicking from across the street rather than take your behind across the street, watch their show, attend the events, then interview them and present your findings. So again, I appreciate that there's a comment, and I encourage people to comment, but I don't appreciate that it seems like you're not watching the video, you're not paying attention, because in that video, in each video, I've made very clear that at least 2 points. One, if you or anyone are making public analysis and commentary, it's up to be criticized. I don't owe you. It shouldn't be on me to track you down or to show up at your event, which I probably can't afford to attend anyway, since they're usually selling access. But it's not my responsibility to find you and ask you to present my findings to you. That's not my job. They went on YouTube, they went on Zoom, they give these paid for classes and all of this and fleece their own audiences by charging for these horrible analyses. And then you're telling me I'm out of order by nitpicking their horrible analysis and their incorrect findings and conclusions, which is, professionally speaking, part of my expertise. Politically speaking, definitely in my wheelhouse and in set of interests. So I've never appreciated this approach. Then, of course, if you paid attention and listened, you would also know that I have reached out and been willing to at least with Boyce Watkins to debate him. I had reached out, albeit some years ago at this point, to Claude Anderson and was told he wouldn't come on my show. So I don't owe, so not only initially do I not owe either of them even that much, but to your point, I have, and they don't. Then lastly, I've produced work on the subject that has been freely available. The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power has been freely available in digital download since the summer, I believe, of 2020. We're going on 2 years of free access to the work. Never mind the decades long of commentary, journalism, and presentations on the subject that I know for a fact Boyce Watkins has been introduced to, and that I have good, I'm pretty confident that Claude Anderson has been made aware of as well. They also then choose to ignore me, to not engage me, and to not even publicly offer up a criticism of my work, which is up for public criticism. So the same thing to GVL. Did you reach out to me, come to my presentations, and present your findings of criticism? Why am I not owed the same thing? Although I do appreciate you acknowledging the masterful job I did of nitpicking. So anyway, these are nonsensical straw arguments about, you should reach out to them instead of being publicly critical. What the hell? That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. Nobody owes you that. If you make a public analysis, it's open for criticism. I'm not name calling. I'm not beefing with them. I'm criticizing their horrible analysis. And it is horrible. And it's wrong, demonstrably wrong. Anyway. Let's see. Oh, this is a earn your leisure troll right here. They came through with a lot of comments, but they raised points that I think are prevalent in response to me and work that tries to do what I'm trying to do. Um, so they say here, the name I think is correcting irresponsible financial something. So they're correct. But correcting says someone who is anti-capitalist will always destroy anything positive. The point is teach us how to build generational wealth, not put down and belittle black wealth or black waste. Stop saying no and present positive, constructive policies and formulas to build Black America. Criticism of Earn Your Leisure was just plain silly. I don't know why you think it's silly. In fact, what I'm saying is there is no way to build generational wealth, and people who sell you that mythology, who literally sell you that mythology, are at minimum just wrong. At maximum, they're willfully lying and hustling you. So my positive constructive policies, I don't know if you pay attention, include redistributing the gross domestic product of the country, the 20 plus $trillion created in this country every year by everything all of us all do in our economic activity. The wealth is already there. Let's redistribute it. There's that one big policy that I advocate in my book and in everywhere else. So I'm not belittling Black wealth. I'm simply pointing to the data that says by 2053 it will not exist at all. Same thing. This person went to another video. I'm glad I got the picture there. An older video, clearly did not watch it, and is just posting randomly. Why is it these so-called Black revolutionary pundits believe that this government actually counts or recognize the vote? Wake up. I never said that. But I love how if the government is so corrupt that it will not let you vote and legitimately vote, but it's not so corrupt as in other words, it won't prevent you from building your Black capitalist fantasies. It will only stop you from voting. But you can go out there and make all the money and get all the power you want without their intervention. But I need to wake up. These are genius. But I love the trolling of just going through the videos and not, like, there's no reference to anything I actually said. There's no timestamp saying you said this and this is where I'm saying you're wrong and here's a link and here's my data and here's my research. No, it's just wake up. And I think this is the same person, but it's a similar comment. And it comes again also, a lot of all these criticisms I've been getting lately come from my criticisms of Claude Anderson and Boyce Watkins. It starts by saying you were correct in your comments, and I should just stop it right there. And you should have, whoever wrote this, my screenshot didn't catch it, but whoever wrote this, you should have just stopped right there. You are correct in your comments. Thank you. I appreciate that. But why is it that you are? Oh, this is Marcus Poole. This is a person called Marcus Poole who commented on my critique of Boyce and Claude Anderson, and then went to my website and posted the same comment there as well. So they were thirsty for this response. So here it is, Marcus. But why is it that you are so afraid to criticize bell hooks who wrote books denigrating Black revolutionaries, basically accusing those involved with Black power as being serial misogynists and saying that the implication of Black power stopped Black progress because of implied violence? At the same time, she clearly expresses that with one or two exceptions, the only masculinity she respects are those demonstrated by a few gay guys. I seriously want to know, why is it that you and others seem to be so terrified of criticizing this woman's work? So my response on my website was something to the effect of, why, Marcus, are you so afraid to have Black capitalist men be criticized for their horrible analysis? What bell hooks wrote when she was alive and said when she was alive now not no longer being so? How is any of that relevant to a critique of these men who are out here prominently charging Black audiences for the sale of Black capitalist fantasy? What does bell hooks's flaws have to do with that? And why, Marcus, are you so afraid that these still living men, still producing work and ideas, why is it so terrifying for you to have them be criticized? Talk to me, Marcus. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm not afraid to criticize Bell Hooks. I just don't think it is necessary at this point because she's not here anymore. And that line of work that you're saying she was engaged in isn't of my focus. And she's not currently producing mythologies about Black capitalism, which is what I'm focused on right now. So if you pay attention to the videos that you're criticizing, you would hear me say in most of them that a lot of the work I'm coming to now that I'm being critical of, I'm coming to through my focus on this cryptocurrency, cryptoganda essay that I'm struggling still to finish, and the second edition of my my myth and propaganda of Black buying power book, which I have to finish by the end of this year. So because of my focus there, and Marcus, did you get the first book? Did you read the first one? My focus there brings me to all this. So I'm not going to be seeing the older analyses of Bell Hooks, who is no longer living and producing that work. I'm not going to see that I'm not likely to see that or be confronted with it as I am now by the living men who are producing and charging Black people. At least Bell Hooks charged major universities for her work. You may not like it, but she was not charging poor Black people with the promise that they will get rich if they read her work or attended her classes. And she's dead. So that's why. So maybe that's another reason. So but the real question is, why are you so afraid to have these men be criticized? What is it about that terrifies you so? Anyway. So that's that. That's just some of the. Those are just some of the criticisms that I had that I saw. That's exactly what I was. Comrade P. That's exactly what I was. That's exactly what I was starting to think. Marcus. What are you so afraid of, Marcus? I was also thinking of Silence of the Lambs, like, Marcus, what happens when you hear Black men being criticized for their whack analysis? Do the lambs start crying, Marcus? Oh man, but I hear you. But I'm real. But on that, Marcus, and on that general line of illogic, I'm very much like Eddie Murphy in Boomerang. Can it get just a little bit darker? Can you turn off all the lights and just a little bit darker? No, Powernomics is not superb. I encourage you to revisit that. I disagree. It's not superb, and the lack of sources in it don't help. But there's a lot of mistakes in that book. Most of which you hear recounted in these videos I've been critical of with Claude and Claude Anderson and Boyce Watkins. So yeah, we got to have our footnotes and our citations, and then we got to have a non-Black capitalist analysis. That's it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the Bell Hooks got. I mean, I don't even know where that came. We mentioned her once when she passed away recently, and then that was really it. I mean, I guess we didn't go in, and I get it. We didn't go in on her and her career, but I think when she comes back and offers up some whack analysis, I'll be critical of it.